going to talk about Alabama's disappointing news on the baseball diamond. We're also going to talk about some recruiting stuff. June is going to be a huge month for Alabama when it comes to recruiting. And we're going to bring up one special season and all this talk of scheduling and schedules getting harder with these, maybe the 6-3 method that the SEC is going to come up with, and maybe some of these non-conference games coming up. We're going to talk about a season that will blow your mind in terms of Alabama's schedule.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. Good holiday. Did you have a good holiday?
I did. Check out my shirt. It's more 4th of July, but get in, loser. We're going to the moon. That's sort of a Memorial Day thing, I guess. I don't know.
I just thought you went to the beach. I thought you went to the beach. I didn't know it was such an extravagant trip that you took on Elon Musk's.
I went I went to the beach at the Sea of Tranquility. Okay. Jimmy, Alabama got some baseball news day. The NCAA's had their announcement about who makes the field. Alabama didn't make the field. In fact, they weren't apparently one of the first 4 out. Ole Miss did get in, though. I mean, look, it's one of those things to me. This is why you don't have 64 teams. This is stupid that Ole Miss gets in and Alabama doesn't. That's stupid. I'm fine with Alabama not getting in. I'm totally fine with that. The fact that Ole Miss gets in when Alabama swept them, Alabama lasted longer in the SEC tournament than they did, is just and had a better record, I think, in the SEC than they did, is a little goofy.
I don't think the third thing's right, although it was close. The way I look at it,
it was right there. I'm not going to pretend I know it.
No, it is right there. As a matter of fact, this morning on SEC Network, they put up the Alabama resume, the Ole Miss resume, the Kentucky resume. All side by side, and like, okay, which one are you going to pick? And frankly, it was all indistinguishable. I mean, for every plus or minus Alabama had, Ole Miss and Kentucky, I mean, it just looked like with those 3, you could have just picked a name out of a hat. One was not, hugely better than the other. But the way I look at it as an Alabama fan, here's my thing: does Alabama deserve to be in the NCAA tournament? In my opinion, no. They weren't good enough. If they'd have won 1 more, maybe 2 more in Hoover, then yes. But there were too many midweek losses to bad teams. The SEC record was about 12-18 or 12-17 or something like that. That's just not good enough. As tough as the SEC is, that's just not good enough. And there just weren't enough wins. It just wasn't a good enough team. Now, am I mad Ole Miss got in? Not really. I don't really get how Ole Miss got in and Alabama was so far out. I don't get it. But I don't care. Alabama didn't deserve to be in, so I don't care who's in. And on top of that, what's in front of Alabama, Luke, is they just got to get better. More dudes, and more dudes playing well. Because Alabama did have some dudes Zane Denton's a good example. I mean, a real good hitter last year, wasn't so good of a hitter this year. Maybe it was an injury thing. I don't know. Garrett McMillan, great starting pitcher most of the year, but wasn't great every time out. His last start this weekend was pretty bad. So I'm just saying more dudes and more dudes playing well when it matters. Baseball's got a long way to go. I'm a little down on baseball. I'm not so much in favor of making a coaching change, but to the point of apathy with it, to be honest. I mean, if they do, okay. But if it's up to me, I give them another year. I think the Connor Prelip injury alone and that bad luck is worth another year. It also made the NCAA tournament a year ago. Obviously, we're very close this year. I'm for giving them another year. But if they don't, if Greg Byrne doesn't, okay, so be it.
I feel like he'll get another year mainly because Dana Duckworth stepped down as a gymnastics coach. And so I feel like that's going to be a situation where they don't, let's not make too many changes in 1 year. And maybe these 2 things are totally non-related. But if he were, and if he were, if we were just stinking up the place, like losing every week, if we were the Cincinnati Reds of the SEC, then yeah, I think we would make a change. But the bottom line is we were on the cusp of being okay and a few injuries away. I'm not trying to make excuses for Bohannon. I'm like you. I'm not really worried about it. I mean, I want baseball to be good, but we only talk about baseball when we're in the College World Series or when we are on the verge of the NCAA tournament. So I'm not super worried about it.
What just set off a rant for me, nothing with what you said, but I've seen some comments on various public boards, and boy, this gets to me because this is why. Because this is what happened in basketball when the fans lose confidence in Avery Johnson and Anthony Grant before, and it hasn't happened in basketball with Nate yet. But I've seen this is what our fans go to. Once fans decide that they're done with the coach, and it's there, like, okay, I'm done with this guy, and no change is being made, like no one's fired today. This is what they do. They think that, or they claim that Alabama's not trying, that we don't care. We don't spend any money. We don't invest in the baseball program. They don't care. That's why they don't fire the coach. That is just ludicrous. Alabama spends huge money on every sport compared to everyone else. At the time, I remember specifically when people had decided they didn't care about basketball, didn't invest in basketball, didn't care enough to spend money to win, we actually spent the 16th most in the entire United States on college basketball that year. Baseball's similar. It's not the budget. They hired who they wanted to hire. They picked this guy because he was the top assistant at a top program and had been recruiting the SEC forever. And it was sort of universally lauded as a good hire. It wasn't they were trying to go on the cheap. That's anybody that says that doesn't know how the University of Alabama athletic department and Greg Byrne works. They're trying. It's not easy to do. Go ask all the other big time programs that spend a lot of money that also isn't in the NCAA baseball tournament. It's just not easy to win. It's more than just throwing money at it.
I agree with that. I'm also mildly freaked out that during that entire rant, if you're watching this on YouTube, you had your left hand out of view and your right hand was going nuts. I mean, what are you doing with your left hand? People kind of want to know or don't. I just thought it was odd that you only ranted with one hand. But
I wonder if it's because I'm on a stool. I don't have
you
hand. I'm going nuts. So I'm sort of balancing myself on the stool, going nuts in the rant. I didn't want to. I've already dropped a phone in the garbage can once. I didn't want to fall completely off the stool. And boy, that would be a show.
Boy, that's a shame that we weren't doing that show on YouTube when you dropped the phone in the trash can. That would have been amazing. All right, Jimmy, I got to tell everybody about BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL and college football futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to esports and even more than that. Head to the website today or use your mobile device, that thing that you fits in your pocket that Jimmy drops in the trash can, to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline is where the game starts. I want to thank you guys for making us your first listen. You guys are the best. All the new followers. We also want to tell you to check out Locked On Sports Today. This is a great website. First of all, again, thank you for making Locked On Bama your first listen. But for your next listen, you ought to check out Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions and big game recaps, and the take of the day. Maybe that's something we should do, Jimmy, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay. We're going to do the recruiting stuff in the next segment because I know you may get on a roll. You have a Cade Phillips rant. We're going to save it for the next pod. I found this interesting, Jimmy. I was just thinking back about Alabama, and everybody's talking about the new schedule format, 6-3, and how hard that's going to be. And then Alabama's future non-conference games are against Wisconsin and West Virginia and Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. They got all these really tough games coming up in the non-conference. And everybody's like, how in the hell is this going to work? I just want to harken back. let me read off the 1986 schedule. Now,
I knew right before you said I knew you were going to go to 86. That
it's
last,
cool.
I'm not sure what this was going to be about, but right when I'm like, this is going to be about 86. It's nuts.
It is bananas. And so dig this. By the way, at the time, oddly, you only played 6 SEC games, that's kind of shitty. But you only played 11 games overall. But this was Alabama's schedule in 1986. It was a hell of a team. And as I read this off, I'm going to put up the program picture from the Alabama first game in New Jersey, the kickoff classic. That's Alabama against Ohio State. I think is that Earl Bruce, right? That's Earl Bruce, the head coach of Ohio State there.
Right. I think that's a good call. Yeah, because that's Woody up top with Coach Bryant. And yeah, I guess Earl and Ray Perkins were literal direct descendants of Woody and Woody Hayes and Paul Bear Bryant.
And I'll tell you a really quick story about this. My parents went to that game with some other friends of mine, other friends of theirs, I should say. And those friends also had kids about my age. And when they came back, they brought a game nobody in Alabama had even heard of or talked about called laser tag. And because they had just been in New Jersey and they found it in this toy store. It was like a new thing. And they just gave us all early Christmas presents. I mean, laser tag, you put this little thing. I mean, now it's like everybody's got something like it. But it was like you put this thing on your chest and you shoot lasers in it. If you ding 3 times, you're out or whatever. It was so much fun. But anywho, it was at East Rutherford, New Jersey, of course. Alabama wins the game. Derek Thomas has 2 pass interference calls late. Alabama gets the victory. I'm not going to go down all the wins, but I just want to read the schedule. Alabama opened up against number 9 Ohio State. That was back when the kickoff classic was badass. Then they played at home against Vanderbilt. Derek Thomas, I remember I went to that game, blocked a punt and scored a touchdown off of it. Then they played Southern Miss. They won that game. Then they played at Florida and won 21-7. That's pretty damn badass. Then
Emmitt Smith was probably on. He was a freshman the following year.
And when he beat our ass in Legion Field. Then
that's right, he was a freshman. Yeah.
Then we came home to play Notre Dame. Now Notre Dame wasn't ranked, but we came home to play, Notre Dame, who we had never beaten before, and beat them 28-10 in Legion Field. Then we traveled.
Different Notre Dame. They were really good. They were just 2 seasons away from winning the national championship.
That's right. Then we played Memphis State. They were still Memphis State then, and beat them 37-0. Then we go to Knoxville and play Tennessee on ABC. Bobby Humphrey goes off, and we win 56-28. And then I was at this game too in Tuscaloosa. We play number 6 Penn State, and they come in there and wax our ass in front of a capacity crowd of then 60,210.
Different time, wasn't it? Different time.
Yeah.
That Penn State team won the national title.
That's right. Then we're at Mississippi State, who was number 19. We beat them 38-3, and that game was on TBS. That's how long ago that was.
Must have been an 11 o'clock. That must have been an 11 o'clock, the 11 o'clock TBS. Back then, before it was the Jefferson Pilot kickoff, it was the TBS kickoff at 11 in the morning.
That's right. 11:37, wasn't it?
They had like real cool intro to the game was all the mascots. They had like a cartoon mascot intro that is cool, that as good as the SEC network is, that was even cooler.
That's right. Then we play LSU at home in Legion Field. Bobby Humphrey, in my opinion, if they had instant replay, would have scored on diving over the goal line, but they said he fumbled. They called it a fumble before he crossed the goal line, but he didn't. Never forget that. We lost 14-10. Then we beat Temple. Then we play Auburn, who was number 14. We lose on the Lawyer Tillman reverse, 21-17. And then we go and play Washington in the Sun Bowl and beat the ever-living hell out of them, 28-6. But my point is, that year we played a 6-game SEC schedule. So, again, not quite a 9-game SEC schedule. But our non-conference was Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Penn State. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Who does that? I mean, you can't do it anymore. It was a product of just playing 6 SEC games. Back then, there actually used to be more big time. They used to call them intersectional games. Teams from different parts of the country playing each other. There was more of them back then because there were fewer conference games. But gosh, that schedule. I'm going to kind of paraphrase the answer. I got to talk to the late great Ray Perkins one time, and I asked him. I guess I'd had a few beers and was able to ask him a more direct question than I normally would have. But I asked in a conversation with Coach Perk, I said, do you feel like that 86 team could have won the national championship, but the schedule was just too tough, just kind of scheduled our way out of a shot at the national championship? And he answered real quickly and bluntly, and I stupidly didn't think about it before I asked. He was also the athletic director. He probably set up that schedule. But I asked him that question, and real quick, his answer was, no, we didn't win the national championship because we didn't have enough good players.
Oh, okay. Makes some sense.
I mean, hey, that's like, and not a shot at his team, just like, we weren't good enough to win the national championship. Is what he's saying. We weren't good enough. And despite how tough that schedule was, he just wasn't good enough. And I think there was some Nick Saban in that answer, honestly. I think Coach Saban would answer those questions similarly in years that we didn't win the national championship. I don't think Saban will be like the fans and say, well, we had this injury, or we had this bad luck, or maybe. But I think Saban's answer as to why we don't win in a private conversation, I think Saban's answer is almost always we're just not good enough, and because he wants to get us better. He wants to go sign a better class than the one he just signed.
All right, Jimmy, let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to let you tell everybody about our big June coming up. All right, buddy. June is upon us. So tell me what's going on recruiting-wise.
Yeah, it's sort of crazy that this is the new recruiting calendar. I hate it myself. I've ranted against the early signing period since before they installed it. Now it's been installed. Now we've seen it in action. I hate it even more. I think a lot of big-time coaches agree with me. I don't know what Nick Saban's public or private stance is. I'm just betting that Nick Saban agrees with me that it's just been terrible because there's all these unintended consequences that came from it. Here's one of the big unintended consequences is the official visits got changed. I mean, signing days in December, right? You can't do official visits in October, November. You're playing home games. It's just the worst time to do official visits is during home games because you need to spend substantial time. The coaches need to spend substantial time with the players and their families on those official visit weekends, and we're literally playing a game. I mean, it's just so you can't do it during the games. So you're going to do it during August, during fall camp, when your attention needs to be on getting the team ready to play in the games? Nope. All you're left with is the summer and June and July. So, and this is also when you have camps. So June has turned into, weirdly and really stupidly, June is the biggest recruiting month of the year now. For people like me who love recruiting, I know everybody that listens to the show loves recruiting, or you probably wouldn't be listening to the show. June is now the month. June, this is what happens to the poor people that work for the University of Alabama's football program, because the schedule is really absurd. But Monday morning, there's a camp. So all these kids, most of whom we're not recruiting, most kids are there at camp to legitimately have fun, to become better football players, to enjoy their experience, and for their parents who bring them and get to see Coach Saban or get to watch their kid practice on Alabama's practice fields. The majority of kids that are in camp are there to experience that. Some are there to try to impress the coaches to the point they get a scholarship offer or get bumped up the board. That's true too. That's what we pay attention to as fans of recruiting. But that's a small percentage of the kids that camp over the summer. But Monday, the campers show up, and they're there like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And some of them leave Thursday, and some of them leave Friday, and they're there. But as soon as they're out, here comes the official visitors. They arrive on Friday, various times during the day. Then the coaching staff and the whole staff has to entertain them Friday, Saturday, into Sunday morning. By the Sunday afternoon, the kids have all left. They've all gone home. Coaches finally get a few hours off, but it's just a few hours because Monday morning, here comes another camp. And man, it's crazy, the work schedule. Thankfully, I think a lot of the coaches have some vacation time in July, and they really need it with the season about to start, but mostly because they're worn out from June. Just a crazy schedule and a product of that stupid early signing day. It was so much better in the past when we had one signing day in February and all the official visits could take place in January when the games were over, school's still in session. It's not the summer, it's not the hot summer months, it's in January. That's when most of the official visits were. Perfect schedule. Now it's all screwed up. Now it's literally 7 months before that. And because it's 7 months before, what does that force you to do? Now your evaluations have to take place 7 months before they used to. So now you're evaluating a bunch of 10th graders instead of a bunch of 11th graders on tape. So there's just 100,000 reasons to hate the early signing period, and this is one of them. But for those that didn't know, June is now the recruiting month.
Wow, man, that was a thing you just did. I like that.
That-
How long can you hold your breath? That was a rant.
I could have figured out 3 or 4 other things to rant about that early period too. But no, I mean, it's interesting because I love recruiting and I'm still going to love it. And I'm still going to have a lot of, for those that subscribe to On3 and those that subscribe here and listen to us every day, June is actually going to be a fun month to listen to the show and read our stuff on On3 because it's just a wall of recruiting information that's going to be happening all month long.
All right, buddy, that's going to do it for today's episode. We will be back with more Locked On Bama on the next episode, obviously. I don't think we're changing. So until then, roll tide, everybody.